You and I had a chance to chat on the phone yesterday, and this $2.8 billion. There's no question that one of the many things that was broken in state government when you guys got there 2.5 years ago was unemployment insurance. It had been mismanaged. There had been overruns. There had been money that we owed that we weren't paying back, and the debt was growing, just like the national debt grows. But instead of letting it grow and sitting there and watch it happen like it had happened under the Perdue administration, you guys set about trying to fix it along with the help of the legislature, and here we are 2.5 years later. So I understand you may have some exciting news for us this morning.
We do have some exciting news. Maybe not as exciting as being sung to by Marilyn Monroe, but this will be something for the wallets of people, the employers of Eastern North Carolina. Let me be clear to your listeners that people often confuse the unemployment taxes as being paid by the employees. FUTA is a federal unemployment tax. It's only paid by employers. That's different than FICA, which obviously is paid by both. But unemployment taxes are only paid by the employers in North Carolina. This is an employer-funded system. We get no money from Congress. We get no money from the General Assembly in North Carolina. So what happened was this system was broke and broken. Those are two different things. We were broke, obviously, with the third highest amount of debt in the United States, only behind New York and California.
Wow.
But our processes were broken. We were just paying and chasing. We were paying money out of the first floor and chasing it down on the fourth floor when we realized we were doing it incorrectly. Now, you've already used the B word already this morning, billion, but your listeners may be shocked to hear that over the last 8 years we've paid out, including federal unemployment benefits, $20 billion out of this building just for unemployment benefits over the last 8 years. So we set about the process of doing it correctly, not just quickly. The people who deserve this money deserve to know that when they get it, that we've done it right on our end. And the people who don't deserve the money and who are trying to fraud the system, which there are many, they don't deserve to get it at all. So the news this morning is basically this. Just a few weeks ago, we received a $170 million waiver from the federal government. They could have charged the employers in North Carolina an additional $170 million for FUTA penalties because we were in our fifth year of borrowing. It's like being a bad credit risk. We received that waiver, so that $170 million penalty would not be borne by the employers in North Carolina. That's late 2014. 2015, this debt is going to be paid off thanks to the three Ps. Policy, those are changes made by the General Assembly, which your good representatives and senators down there voted for. Change in processes, how we're changing things up here to make sure we do it correctly, not just quickly. And obviously the people of our agency who have rallied to pull all of it together. But the debt is, we only have $430 million worth of debt remaining from a peak of $2.8 billion. That debt will be paid off in the spring of this year. And when that occurs, our employers are going to have a $280 million FUTA surcharge decrease in 2015 versus what they paid in 2014.
Now that means that people who own businesses are going to see a pretty good drop in what they're paying in quarter by quarter on their federal unemployment tax, their FUTA tax.
That's right.
And that's going to be a huge boon to businesses across the state of North Carolina. I mean, it's basically going to give businesses a raise and maybe loosen things up a little bit for some folks. And again, we'll put, if you listen to Obama, he's going to say, well, we'll just take it and buy a yacht.
Right.
But what will happen is that money will go back into businesses, and we're probably going to have a bunch of jobs created from that.
Yeah, or it gets reinvested back in the business, or it turns into profits, so therefore businesses have to pay more income taxes, which obviously helps the general fund. The other issue is that once this occurs, Henry, and for your listeners, it's very big for economic development in eastern North Carolina and all parts of North Carolina. Our FUTA taxes were 2.5 times higher than 41 other states, including all of our border states. So not only that, but it'll put us in a position where we don't have one hand tied behind our back in terms of our unemployment taxes being higher than the people we're competing with. And we're like an insurance company. Anytime someone gets a job in North Carolina, that's less money going out on the claims side in our building, and that's more money coming in on the revenue side. And the important part of that equation is simply this, is if we get the surplus built to $1 billion, so not only paying off the $2.8 billion in debt, but build it up to $1 billion surplus, there's a potential in 2016 of another $250 million SUTA, state unemployment tax decrease in 16, a total of over $700 million over a 17-month period of time.
I mean, here's the thing. You look at the situation, and you said it. It's a responsible policy that went into place to take care of this rather than just kicking the can down the road. And I don't understand why other people, particularly people in federal government, don't understand this is what you have to do. You have to take your medicine. You have to fix it. You have to pay your debts. And then you can get the economy to grow. Now, the amazing thing about it is unemployment has gone down dramatically during this period of time in North Carolina.
Right.
So you got to think that, we may be on the precipice of maybe even having a bigger boon in job creation across the state when employers start to realize these extra funds. And I don't want to beat up the Purdue administration and people before her, but I mean, realistically, nothing was being done to take care of this before you guys got it in 2012. Is that fair?
It is fair. Obviously, there was a huge economic downturn in 2008, 2009, and there just wasn't enough money in the bank to absorb all the claims that were coming in. At one point, including the money that we were flowing through for the federal extension, at one point, this agency was paying out $125 million every Sunday night.
Wow.
So these are big numbers, and it's going to mean a lot. And, it's my opportunity as Assistant Secretary of Commerce to say that, we want to thank the employers in North Carolina. We obviously, they're the ones that have paid into this system and have allowed us to get to this situation. Your listeners might be interested to know, Henry, that over the last 6 years, we've paid $270 million in interest on this debt.
Mm-hmm.
Just in interest. But to be very clear, and this is the only thing I have the permission to speak on behalf of Governor McCrory to say, we always talk about ones in this building. If we owe $1 of debt, that's one too much. If there's one phone call that's not being answered expeditiously for our customers, whether it's a claimant or employer, that's one too many. If there's one person who's not getting the benefit they rightly deserve on a timely basis, that's one too many. If there's one person who's trying to fraud the system, that's one too many. But the most important part of that whole string of logic is this. If there's one person in North Carolina who wants a job and who does not have a job, that's also one too many.
That's a great philosophy, and that's quite a change in culture. And you see that throughout state government. People who want the status quo and wanted the status quo, I think they were, even some of the liberal media in Raleigh is going to have to look at what you guys have done with this, Dale, and realize that this is pretty incredible. The Assistant Secretary of the Department of Commerce in charge of the Division of Unemployment for North Carolina, Dale Folwell. I remember, Dale, when you were running for Lieutenant Governor in 2012, you were running around the state. I remember you were here one morning with us at Rep Express, and you were fond of bringing with you the regulations, the big, thick book of regulations that were going on in the state of North Carolina. And, I think Governor McCrory was very wise to put you in charge of this project because you're known as a numbers guy and a practical, smart management guy. in Raleigh, and I just got to congratulate you. I know it's been a team effort with the legislature and the Department of Commerce and the governor's office to get this done. But, I mean, this is a real success story that the rest of the country needs to hear.
Well, I appreciate that. I know your producer is probably screaming in your ear, but it gives me an opportunity to say one more thing. I'm not a bowler, but I understand that the people who bowl the perfect games, the ball doesn't hit every pin. You have to figure out which pin to hit and in what sequence. And we've had some 3 or 4 huge bowling pins over the last 15 months that have really led to this success. And one of them is an idea that came from inside of our building. A lady had been working here 3 years, and this is going to sound so commonsensical to your listeners. She said, why would we load this debit card, which is how people get their benefits, before we heard back from the employer about why this person was discharged? That makes so much common sense.
It definitely does.
So we put the administrative week in there that said that we're going to give employers 15 days to respond, and if they don't respond by 15 days, we're going to adjudicate and rule on these cases. We're not going to let the employer slow play the claimant. That was a huge bowling pin that's had a big impact on cutting down on fraud, waste, and abuse in our system. But the other big bowling pin was the photo ID that we implemented almost a year ago, where for the first time, we are requiring claimants in North Carolina to physically appear in one of the local offices, the NC Works DWS offices, which are run by my counterpart, Will Collins, to physically appear in one of our local offices within the first 4 weeks and prove with a photo ID that they are who they said they were when they filed this claim on the Internet. That's made a huge difference in cutting down on waste, fraud, and abuse.
Imagine that, proving that you really deserve the money and you are who you said you were.
Which is a requirement to get a job in your radio station or any business in Eastern North Carolina. The federal law says you have to have a photo ID to get a job.
Yeah.
If it's a requirement to get a job for employment, why shouldn't it not be a requirement to receive unemployment?
Yeah.
And that's what we do.
Crazy. That whole photo ID thing is so crazy. But you know what? You won't be hearing about this success story at the Moral Monday rallies coming up, Dale. So get ready. It's just going to be more of the same when the legislature kicks in here next week. Thank you, my friend. Nice talking to you, and congratulations and thank you from the taxpayers and the employers in North Carolina.
And we'll send you some press releases, and maybe you guys can put it up on your website and people can read more about it.
And thank you for making the announcement on our show. Great news for Eastern North Carolina businesses. Thank you, Dale. We'll talk to you soon.